Hi everybody. Today we're going to do something exciting. We're going to create a headless news site using Astro and using Vive API for our content base. This is going to be a raw experiment. We're going to do it together. Vive API, if you don't know, it's our ArcXP's headless content retrieval API intended for public audience. That means you can implement that in your mobile applications, TV applications, your backend systems, front-end systems. It's really, it's very flexible. Delivered through CDN. There's, plenty of rate limits that you can work with. And more center of this experiment, we're going to play with AI code editors to see if ArcXP knowledge base, now that our developer portal and ALC is public documentation, large language models can access, crawl, hopefully get us answers quicker without needing to open and read the documentation. And our goal is going to be do least amount of coding possible, if no coding at all. But probably like AI is gonna need our help at some point. We're gonna be using popular language model services, OpenAI or ChatGPT or Claude, using through our AI code editors. And our goal is to stay within, code environment as much as we can. So what we're going to do is ArcXP has a sample mobile app. It does have sample content, might be outdated, but we don't care. It does have a site hierarchy navigation designed for mobile, but we're going to try to replicate this app in a simple web application with the navigation, stories, website collections, video content, and we try to replicate a basic website. As I mentioned, like the navigation is set up inside service. There are like collections in WebSket, and there's some sample stories, some sample content that hopefully at the end product will be looking realistic website. So when we deconstruct the site or how we want to progress, I did put them in these bullet points and sections. So there's going to be some elements that we're going to have to take care of, like for site-wide, like general layout, navigation bar, footer. We will probably start from homepage. Essentially, homepage is just like collection of stories in different buckets and videos as well. So we're gonna try to pull WebSket collections and stories through Vive API and display them in either like grid or maybe list views. Section detail pages are kind of homepage or different versions of homepages, a little bit more like specific topic. Obviously, sections are configured in site sections, and they're used in your content editorial team when they circulate certain stories in certain sections, right? But this is bonus. Let's focus on the first priority ones, either from homepage and or with section detail pages. What we need is, this is sort of like the centerpiece or largest surface area for your sites, is article detail pages. So this is a unique content. When a user clicks a thumbnail or a title of a story, this is the page they're gonna land to. There's mental separation between, like, there's primary content, the content that they clicked, right? The article header, probably like cover image, and maybe body text that we're gonna render. And obviously there's a translation from ANS into HTML content that we're gonna work through together, right? There's also secondary content either on the right, sidebar or at the bottom, things like related articles or most recent articles. We're gonna try to replicate that as much as we can. Video section front, again, like that's a little bit optional, but we're gonna try to create video detail screen. It's kind of like a variation of article detail page, which is essentially a content detail page, and they share a lot of like common models to query the content API or Vive API, but display them differently. So we're going to try to create those pages as well. So these emojis, the only thing that I mark them as like secondary or bonus goal is the section detail pages or video section detail pages for these content types. So what we need which organization environment we're working on. The sample mobile app is built on Arc Sales organization. This is our internal organization our sales team use to demo. And the content we're looking for is in Sandbox environment. To starting point, like as most of your administration APIs and your current content APIs, if you have done integrations before, Developer Center token is where we start with. It's not the one that we will eventually use. We will be using Vive API, and Vive API uses a special API keys called delivery API keys. and we will use dev center token as an administration step to create new keys. And once we're done with that, developer center token we're done with its purpose. We can clean that up from our project for security reasons. But essentially, what we will need is just environment. There's a base URL for Vive API, slightly different than other APIs you interact with, and the API key that we will generate. I will be using Windsurf IDE. This is very similar to Cursor AI. Almost all of these tools are at this day and age Visual Studio forks. Windsurf is as well. It's the one that I like slightly better than Cursor AI, but this is definitely my preference. And as part of this experiment, I will highlight some of the cool stuff Windsurf can do, but it's very much similar to Cursor AI, and you can use other IDEs or AI tools as well. We will be using Astro. It's gaining more popularity every day, especially in the content-heavy websites like news and media publishing. This is sort of like rolling back the client-side heavy JavaScript frameworks back to server-side rendered frameworks. Astro is server-side rendered by default. It's an opt-in that you can start rendering isomorphically, and it's based on React or front-end framework agnostic. You can use Vue, Angular, or other frameworks as I mentioned here, but we will be sticking with React as more like our general popular framework to stick with, and Tailwind CSS to just like style our pages to make it look a little bit nicer. Let's get started. We will start with Astro framework. Getting started is simply just says like npm create Astro latest. So we'll just start following these instructions. So let's create a sample headless news site folder. We'll go in, we'll run Astro command, and we'll go through their beautiful CLI experience. We say like current folder, minimal starter. Yes, we want minimal starter, install dependencies. We do have, yes. Perfect. Now we run npm run dev, and our server starts. We'll click. Voila. We do have our basic Astro project. We'll open the project in code editor now and take a look at what it looks like. So we'll keep our Astro running on this side. Probably we're going to run more comments here. We're going to go in the same folder, Windsurf. So this is what Windsurf looks like. It's almost same with Visual Studio Code. It's a fork. It supports like Visual Studio extensions and all of that. Plus, they have their agent called Cascade. Is very, very similar to all of the other AI code editors and AI tools. We're going to be probably like chatting and asking questions about Arc. But first, let's hide this. Let's look at Astro, what it looks like. Basically, like to get started, edit files in src pages folder. Most likely that content is coming from here. This is a component that is imported, and see like that text we're seeing in the browser is coming from here. And we will start from the sort of like first order of business, setting our layout, navigation, and styling, and all of that. Now let's ask Cascade, our AI editor, to scrap this and give us like a sample layout using Tailwind CSS. We want right now there's no CSS being utilized or CSS framework being utilized. The majority of the CSS I see is edited it inline in the Astro file. This is getting extracted and loaded dynamically by Astro framework. But let's use, we don't want this. We want like a little bit more like news site and the layout. So right now we're still in chat mode. I'm expecting the editor to suggest that let's switch to write mode so it can execute these comments. So right now it's just like explaining it. We don't want this. We want it to write. I'm curious, like, is it going to suggest that? Yes, we want that to be implemented. Implement this. As most of our other AI tools, it remembers the context within a long conversation, regardless of how long you talk with it. So there's some error output. Let's see if this is... No, actually couldn't install. You weren't able to install Tailwind. That's how it's installed with Astro. Yes, that sounds better. I guess that's an interactive question. Yes, it detected that there's an interactive question. It shows up. So now it is, I believe it's installing correctly. I thought that looked like success, but okay, try again. Oh, because there's like another question Astro shows. But wait a second, it says able scaffold styles. Did we create that folder? No. All right, I think it still is not able to interact with interactive terminal commands. So let's help. Yes. Yes. It's going to add this to our Astro config. Yes. So maybe it failed to detect the last interactive question. Yes. And we just helped it to do it. Okay, great. There's import in our Astro config. There's the plugin enabled. Okay, great. So now we can ask it to continue. We're done with terminal. As Cascade makes updates, you can view its changes as a diff file. So it created homepage Astro. Obviously, every line is new. It looks pretty. Tailwind product. Obviously, we're going to be updating these, but it seems like it created a sidebar element that is trending topics. It says like run dev. Nope, we're actually running this already. We can check what it did. All right, that doesn't look great. I'm curious if Tailwind detects the config comment changes. So just to make sure before we blame AI. Yeah. So we can ask it. So we still haven't accepted all changes, but the way Windsurf does, different than Cursor, is when it makes changes, it actually saves the file. So if you have like live preview, you can see it live while it makes edits. Whereas in Cursor, you have to accept every change like one by one. And it still has the option to, at the end, accept all the changes for this particular batch of changes we ask. And you can interact with it many times as you want until you're happy. And then at the end, you can say like accept all changes or reject all changes. Usually those are the checkpoints I take when I try to interact and wait it to do its magic multiple times, multiple attempts like this. But also you can see like, this is the batch of changes it made, and I can, review each one either like file by file or even inside each file. I can say like, I don't like this change, reject only this change, accept this one, and you can go on and you can go as granular as you want. So made some changes. We're bluntly looking at you're trying to use Tailwind directly as post-CSS plugin. Move to separate package. Okay, we don't have to try to figure this out. We can ask AI. Getting this Astro build error. This is a change in Tailwind CSS plugins, that how it does the CSS minification or optimization using a package that used to be part of Tailwind CSS before. Now it's not, called like post CSS, and we're letting AI to fix that. Yep, there's a new post CSS config file, and that is configured, will be updated in Astro config file. So we'll do npm run dev. Let's see if this is gonna compile our page or not. It did, and styles are there. Of course, like images are missing, but we're gonna make that work. This is great. So far, AI is doing its job pretty well in the front end and Astro world. Soon we're getting very close to start poking with our Vive API access, and we'll probably pause Astro work a little bit. But for now, let's check around. We still haven't accepted everything AI did, right? So I'm gonna close all the files. So we're starting fresh. We're gonna review everything. Layout Astro. Let's close that area. It imports our global CSS file. That's probably Tailwind. Title is coming from Astro props. I'm assuming that's something that can be passed from each page to be overwritten. That's a good practice. There's our navigation, which we're gonna probably ask this to be moved to a component, and then we're gonna enrich that component to pull this navigation dynamically from Vive API. This is probably the page content, because this is a layout wrapper, right? And we do have our footer. That looks good. We're good with layout. Homepage is brand new. For now, we don't care, too much. We're gonna, update this to be pulling like different collections and stuff like that. Most likely, we will make these story cards as a component, and then maybe, the sort of sections that wraps like these blocks also a component. But we'll get there. Index Astro, yes. Welcome component is gone. Probably it's still there. It's not deleted. The behavior I observe is Windsurf doesn't delete files, which is, I like it, because don't make things disappear without my knowledge, right? Deleting file is pretty serious, so I want like full control on that. This is great. It probably attempted this first, or by default setup, and then updated that. It's great. Astro config is just our Tailwind plugin, and Tailwind itself uses the post CSS, which essentially what it does is it detects, it scans all of your project, it detects which classes we use, and it drops everything else that we don't use. Something like, let's say like background color purple. If we never use that, we don't need that in the final compiled CSS. This is a pretty good plugin that kind of slims that down to like very, very minimal. If we only use like 5 classes, we only get a CSS, compiled CSS, only containing those 5 class definitions, which is great. All of this looks good. So we accept these changes. And at this point, it's up to you that you make a commit, you save your changes in Git. But for now, we're gonna continue, right? So this layout is for now, it's okay. We want to ask Cascade what knowledge it has for ArcXP platform and platform APIs. So we're going to switch to chat mode and ask few questions before we're asking it to write anything. We want to make sure like it knows enough that we trust both the AI LLM as well as a recent change we made in ArcXP platform to open up our documentation, both ALC and new developer portal, being completely public. What that means is our documentation now can be crawlable by LLMs and search engines. So we're going to test this theory. We're going to get answers quickly, hopefully without even opening our documentation manually. Now we're going to ask Cascade. So we're in the chat mode, and let's see what the LLM can tell us about ArcXP platform. Great. It searched the web. It found the Vive API public documentation. Found the correct document. Content API. Let me check the content API documentation. It seems more relevant. No, it's not. We want Vive API. That is, yes, that's content API. Okay, main API is available. Public content retrieval. We're going to say like, forget about content API. We want to work with Vive API. Okay, get API credentials from ArcXP access token. Set up environment variable API for your API keys. Okay, it recognized the access token and API keys separately, which is great. Create an API service in your project. Okay, that's probably like Astro terminology. Let me help you with integration. I don't know what that means, but because we're in chat mode, we're asking like, don't write, just tell me. Now, seems like it's a TypeScript class or module that does the fetch with auth. Yeah, we don't want content API. Let's correct this guy for a second. Base URL. Okay, I mean, it kind of without no guidance, it picked up like correct signals. It's not API.this. It's like org ID in between. We're going to tell it. Get latest news. Nice. And then this is article detail page. Wow, without even asking like create these pages, it suggested all of this. Most of them look pretty good. I'm pretty sure the paths of these objects are not correct. We're going to make it correct those things. Okay, it says like we need to pull the stuff from environment variables and put it in the config. Okay, let's tell it. I know that Vive API works with a special delivery API tokens, not developer center tokens, which we will generate in this session. But I don't want to say it and see like if it's going to figure it out or not. Let's stay in the chat mode. We don't want it to write any code yet. Oh, I cannot scroll. Maybe it's still typing. Yeah, that's why. Okay, the UI is slightly buggy. Arc API yourdomain.com. That's not correct. API v1 content endpoint. We'll check that from documentation if that's correct or not. Fetch from Vive API /feed/home feed. Not correct at all. Okay. So for this, I know we will need to work with Dev Center token and create API keys. Once we're done creating API keys, we're done with the Developer Center token. But let's see if this is going to figure out in that authentication model. Okay, it's reading the correct docs. Based on the documentation, Vive API uses public-facing API keys, which are different from the regular Arc tokens, correct. Tokens needs to be provisioned through delivery API, correct. Documentation points to a specific guide for token provisioning at provisioning tokens through delivery API, correct. Great, we're on the right track. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Since it needs the .env, we'll say .env file, and I'm gonna put first organization, not the project. We don't want the autocomplete. We're working on sandbox, and we're gonna create a dev center token. So let's pause here. Let's switch to Arc admin, create a token, and then we will come back and continue interacting with the AI agent. So we'll go to Arc admin. We log into Arc sales, switch to sandbox environment, and then we will go to developer center. We will create a new token. For now, this needs to be all access admin token because we're gonna create API keys. Once we're done, this token's job is done. We're gonna stop it here. Fatih, Vive API access key. Right, generate token. This is all we need. And what I'm gonna say to AI is, let's switch to chat. And I'm not gonna mention this part after, it's gonna remember. So let's say like 1, 2, 3, 4, create tokens, key collections, assign token, verify token. It's missing create token. Oh wait, create token. That the first one is like not Vive, create token. Sounds good. I think it's correct. Would you like me to proceed? Load the environment variables. proper API calls, handle errors, and clear output, store necessary information for subsequent scripts. This is great. I didn't ask that, but sure. I'm actually curious. Where are you going to store the outputs between scripts? Your last bullet point. Okay, arc tokens directory. Nice. Okay. Should be added to git ignore. Nice. And these will be just arc tokens, token info collection. Great. I like it. All right. Right. Implement this. Let's go. Scripts folder and arc tokens folder. Sure. Go ahead. And the capable developer. It added these two. Sounds good. We're not going to accept individual changes yet. I want to see everything. Okay, let's make this smaller while that works. Checks the environment variable. Create arc token. Creating view API token. API publishing developer. This is not correct. Let's correct it. Okay, it seems like it did its job. Let's correct this. Let's make the agent correct these. Okay, API and prefix. Nice. If it's not production, is that the correct variable name? Arc.org, arc.env, arc.env, arc.org, arc publishing. That does get base URL. Base URL is this. Is it developer v1 access keys? I don't think it is. I think it was like delivery. So this is most likely not going to work. If it's going to... See, like it's finding the correct place without me reminding them. It's looking at the correct doc, saying like analyzing the shorter section. No, that's not correct. All right, I was hesitant to not open the documentation, but we're gonna open it and let's go to public content retrieval, view API. This is where we say the authentication information exists, which points to this doc. From the document itself, yes, it just says like /v1, but I think this is not entirely correct. I'm gonna check my Postman collection because I did this before. So our org environment /delivery API /v1 access keys. So this is the point that our documentation is not right. Let's tell this to the agent. This is also something in the documentation that can be found in delivery API documentation. Say like, these references are supposed to be identical with these, which in here, in the header here, it is being noted as like delivery API prefix on each endpoint. We're interacting with these endpoints. That's a gap in our documentation. We said, put them in here. It said like delivery API v1 access /keys. These are correct. Let's continue reviewing the scripts it created. First one, we were somewhere here. This didn't look right. Creating view API token. Is that a get call? No, it's a post call. I'm gonna say created by. Okay. So we could have done just like run the scripts and see them not working. I just know that because I'm familiar with these APIs. But if you weren't familiar, you would run it. It wouldn't create an API key. You would go to the documentation, try to connect the dots that the AI agent didn't, correctly do it. But now we're kind of like making a proactive step to correct the path before we even rerun the script. Now this looks correct. Let's review number 2, which we will do like one by one. But I still want, before I accept all of the changes, I want to make sure like there's nothing funky in these scripts and they look consistent and okay. Environment prefix, base URL. It reads the token info JSON from previous call, which it says like token information not found. Great. This is actually pretty nice progressive script. It does fetch the collections and then it saves to the collections. Actually, this second step is completely independent from the first step. This is just a sort of like a measure to make sure like you follow each steps. But in theory, you could run most like any of these API call in this step without doing the first step. Okay, this looks good. It saves to the collections. We could call it like key collections. Actually, let's make like a tiny change, right? See, it suggested like, both copy as well as reference edits here. Awesome. What do you say? Like fetching key collections. Sure. Number 3, this is where we start like connecting it, right? We created a token and it reads both of them. If not found, it says like first run this, then this, come back. It reads with JQ, token info, the token ID we created. It reads collection ID and then makes a post call to assign that key ID with that collection ID. That looks correct. Maybe small thing that this is supposed to be an array that I know of. We could read here that keys assign collection IDs. This needs to be array. So let's tell that. It's a very generic explanation. I didn't say like in the post body or like, this and that, and it's going to do it correctly. So this looks great. It says like final token. This actually does nothing. This endpoint just does the assignment. We don't need the output, but we want to see it. So fine. And the last one, this is just like a verification bonus that basically says like final token. It tries to call an API endpoint. This is great. This is actually the validation that we want to do, but this script is wildly wrong. So for now, let's maybe leave this script aside. What it does is safe for us to accept the code created, but it's not correct. The endpoint, the base URL, we will come back to that with checking our documentation. So I'm gonna accept all of the changes. We're safe. At least like step 1, 2, 3 is good to go. So let's run this. I will do shell scripts 0.1. I would appreciate if it printed. See, like it's not. Ugh. Okay, so seems like it actually created. Maybe it couldn't catch the correct node, which is this guy, key details.key ID. So now we can do some correction. We could ask AI to, correct that as well. Where does it print here? Token ID. Token ID is response, not that ID. It's key details, key ID. I'm not going to rerun it. Like we don't need to create another token, but our script actually works okay with slight thing. So now let's run the second script to get the collection IDs. Probably like it's not catching the collections, but probably it's getting the collection IDs correctly. Yes, this is static. This is once your environment is provisioned with Vive API. In the key collection set, you would get, imagine like this is the product that is provisioned through delivery API. So we're going to use that ID. This is unique to your org. And we will say that assign that with and this. By default, when we create a key, like this is the object, that it only is added to a default collection. And we're going to add the Vive API access to this key, which then it's going to be enabled to use to be used in public API calls to Vive API. So now we're going to run scripts number 3. I have a sense that this script is going to fail because it doesn't have the correct identifiers to read the key ID right here. That is not correct. So let's copy what we entered here. Right? And the collection ID, that is also probably going to fail. So when we list the tokens, it's an array, first object, key collections, it's an array, first object dot ID. First, key collections, first dot ID. We could actually just run this command to validate our assumption. Correct. So this is going to catch the correct collection ID. Let's check this one as well. That's pulling the correct key ID. Now this script is going to work. Scripts 03. Great. So it did assign, and the response of it is saying that hey, this is your key. This is our key. This is actually public key that we're going to use in our API calls. And in the collections now, Vive API product is added to our key. So we're done with the keys. We're going to copy this, and obviously you can call get all of the tokens, and that's going to list all keys including my new key. But we're going to copy the key value, and we're kind of done with this process. This last one, let's focus on this one to validate before we move on. But I'm going to put our key in our Vive API key, right? So we're going to put in our Vive API base URL. What is that? Let's ask AI if it knows. Looking at your .env file, I would appreciate if you didn't print it, but fine. Is arc sandbox org name API viv API for production. It detected its previous error that, oh, wait a second, like I made an error. Let's update that. I didn't even need to ask. Beautiful. This is correct. Now we're talking. Let's implement the fix. Okay. Meanwhile, while that works, obviously we're done with these scripts. What we're going to do is arc sandbox, arc sales, that's our organization name. Wait, there's viv API and arcpublishing.com. I don't think that's correct. I know the answer, but I want to see like if it's going to be able to search, find, figure it out. Normally, we would have run this. It would have failed. No. Not correct. Okay, let's not struggle too hard. This is the correct URL. Okay. Organization name, environment name, but it's strangely, there's like config api.arc-cdn.net and the base URL. Right, so what I am going to tell the agent is normally when our customers request viv API from Arc, we provide these URLs, including some, sometimes the keys as well. I was just curious, like, can AI agent figure this information out without previous knowledge? Seems like this is an area of disconnect. Okay. Yes, let's see what you did. Fort script. Content feed is not correct. That's not how our viv API works. Let's start something simple. We can ask it to just, this is static endpoint, no input. I'm going to tell it to use search websites endpoint. Okay, so we still have some homework to guide the AI agent to use correct API endpoints with correct parameters. Maybe we will mention like, hey, use this endpoint, go read the docs for more details. We don't need to maybe be too descriptive, except pinpoint like this is the endpoint we need. Okay, this looks correct. It says like just one file it touched since we last accepted all changes, which is this one. This looks good. It reads websites. Actually, just print everything. I don't want you to fail. Okay, except including our small edit. Now we can run Fort script that if the token is correct. Did it send the API token? The header is not correct. The token is not sent like that. So let's go to authentication documentation, which should have mentioned X API key. That seems like it's not noted here. Neither here. So we're not blaming AI agent. It's just a gap in the documentation. Yes. Let's use the one that we saved in the environment variable. So this fourth script is disconnected. It's not like you sequentially create, but on the third one, you just copy paste, do your homework manually. And then we're going to run the same script. Voila. We have all of the sites from our organization being returned correctly. So this is great. So our key works. We're done with the token. We could kill this completely. Just make it empty, or let's actually completely get rid of it. We did our layout. We're done with this. Right? Actually put it here. We're going to create homepage. Actually, it's created. We're going to make it dynamic. So we're still on homepage. Let's see. Into our Arc admin again. We're going to go to... actually, we're not done with the navigation. Since we get the site and navigation or site endpoint working, let's use that like other endpoint to get navigation by ID. We're going to look at site service and figure out like what is the navigation ID we want to work with. And in here, we will choose Arc Sales. Yes, we're gonna do mobile navigation. Let's see what that looks like. Top stories, politics, tech, having all these prefixes that maybe we wanna. How about this? Top stories, politics, tech, sports. Not sure if there's any articles under them, but let's give it a try. This is since maybe we will make this as a variable that we will just swap it out if we don't like the answer. So we will say navigation ID, right? First, let's go back to our layout because there was, if you remember when we were reviewing, it did statically create the navigation here. We want to split this into a different component and include all of that backend API calls to populate the navigation dynamically. So we don't want like layout page to be, too crowded. Okay. It's probably going to update this. It's going to create a component. So we're done with the scripts. Let's minimize that. I'm expecting like the navigation to be created as a new component file, and then probably some other like lib or util. Good guess, Fatih. So there's a wrapper method, Vive API. We're going to look at it in a second, but it created navigation. It deleted here. It put the navigation, beautiful. It's explaining, so I think it's done. Let's start from here, jump to navigation, basically move everything. It says like navigation list. So navigation comes from like this method. We're going to jump to it in a second. Item URL, item display name. Not sure if those are the ones that really comes from Vive API site navigation ID. Is it really? Search navigation by ID. One insider thought, like this is a Swagger embed that gets rendered, embed being not iframe, but it's rendered by JavaScript after the page loads from a dynamic URL. We don't see it actually, like there was a spinner. I'm curious, like if this is going to be able to, is this just reading the server-side rendered HTML or is it reading the Swagger API? To navigation, that's still not correct. It seems like it's not able to read the Swagger documentation, which is a disconnect. I wish it was able to. So this is our raw JSON file. I'm going to tell it because we're going to go back to using other endpoints. So this is an area that Windsurf or probably Cursor 2 is more powerful than just trying to navigate this with ChatGPT. Obviously, it's super convenient. It writes the code within the code itself. It can refer to it as well. But beyond that, it can read references. It can do Google search, which is beautiful. So it's probably like reading different parts of the Swagger doc that we provided. And it's saying that website parameter is needed. Sounds good. That's not correct. Site v3 navigation. That is still not correct. Okay, two things. Let's create here arc site ID. Cool. I believe it's arc sales, but let's fine. Arc sales. I'm gonna call it more literal. This is hard-coded here right now, but if you have a code base that powers multiple sites headlessly, and your CDN layer can navigate and pass this information in any way to Astro, then maybe you can refactor that. Although Astro will want to generate your site statically, so probably this is not at the runtime, but also at the build time it's needed. But we're not going to get into that details. So that's first. Second one, at this point, we're kind of giving up and saying that, hey, just stop figuring things out. You can't. So this is probably like our foundational element. Once we nail this part, we're going to be just creating new methods and it's going to understand it better. But let's see. So it's using correct endpoint because we told it so. Let's open this in the get endpoint website hierarchy. So this is not right. I'm not telling it yet our hierarchy, but we're saying go read again. Let's double check. Correct. This is probably because it's minimizing or limiting its context window and making multiple API calls to their API. I see the issue. Navigation ID instead of ID. Man, you're still wrong. Okay, at this point, giving up, giving it hierarchy. The rest of the edits it made looks okay. Layout, we reviewed. Navigation, brand new. Just calls this is within the front matter. That means like that's server side only. And this is being passed as a prop from server side to the rendering side. And within Astro has something that like by default, it's all server side, unless you say Astro client or a tag like that. I can't remember what was it. But this is all server side, so we're safe. Our tokens, nothing is going through the client side. And they said this helper method is obviously brand new, so we're going to test all of that right now. Accept all. Our server is already running. We will refresh. Let's see what's on terminal. One thing we can do is this response. As far as I know, this is native fetch. Response JSON is also a promise. And we go to navigation, although this one waits. So let's look at navigation object. We're gonna refresh that. I'm gonna check here. .data, .children. So we got the correct info. API works, our token, everything works. What we're gonna do is navigation.data.children. I'm not sure if that is explicitly given here, although there's an example. At least like it could have said like data.children stuff is going to be under it. It didn't know. That's actually a pretty big gap, which we don't like. But if we refresh, we would see in each object, we will get the ID. Probably we will use that as the URL construction, and we're going to use the name. Let's see, like it's under a site object. We're going to have a name, but more like navigation nav title is probably more of what we want. Just because these can be configured flexibly, I want to check like this is the internal naming and navigation title. Title will be displayed in any navigation. Yes, that's the object that we want to use. There may be other aliases, but we're going to use ID, which is the unique identifier of the path, which this is going to give us. This is going to be returned by _ID. One thing also we will do, this is a map that we're supposed to define a key. Item ID as the URL, but it's not just ID, it's _ID. And then what we're going to do is item.navigation title. All right. At this point, we've kind of passed the barrier that like, you know, we wanted to minimize the coding work. We are coding kind of, but it's a disconnect that in multiple attempts, it failed. Okay, great. I think it's pulling like maybe too much. We're looking at site service, going back to our navigation elements. Probably one of these have the Arabic copy for testing. I'm not gonna mess with it. I'm just gonna make it like slightly shorter. So we can demonstrate that like multi-language and everything through our API calls. They work fine. This may be cached, so we'll refresh. Just because Vive API, we cache the content so we can serve a big scale traffic. But we got like the main elements here, right? We have the links to section fronts, which we said like as a bonus that we may look into creating these section front pages, but we're gonna look into them later. Let's move on. We're gonna pull and populate our stories. I'm gonna go back to our documentation just before asking AI, which is likely it's gonna fail because it failed like in a static endpoint like this. It's probably gonna fail on collection by ID. So we go to WebSched. Let's see what collections that we can use. So we're looking at mobile. Okay, great. Let's start with top stories, which is 2 fine. Maybe these are like featured story kind of thing. Maybe like video is going to be grid, we know. Sports, good. Maybe we will, just because like there's stories we can test with, we will use like tech, sports, politics. Okay, great. Like we got everything, or a lot of stuff that we want to use. We're going to now start configuring stuff inside files. What that means is we have homepage, and it had like these sort of dummy content. We can here collections equals. Now we're gonna list like what collections we want to show. Entertainment, fine. We'll use tech. Well, wait, are these the collection IDs? No, those are the collection names. So maybe what we can do is we can do, this is the ID, we comment and describe what these are. Right, let's go to entertainment. And obviously we're gonna do special one. Probably we're gonna want to render a little bit bigger or more prominently the top stories. So we're gonna call like top stories. Stories collection ID equals, I don't know where that got from. Probably clipboard. Yes, it was pasting the same thing. Okay, collections ID and a special one, which is the video. Now we know like the content type will be different for this. So we're gonna do mobile top stories. These are collection names. And nice. So that's inline autocomplete, by the way. When we do, stuff, see like news collection ID, it made up this ID, but it's kind of like guessing that, hey, we're in a pattern that we're doing, things in a certain way that it guesses what we're about to do. So we save this and we're going to use this to populate now. What I want it to do is to create a generic like get stories by collection ID, right? We're going to use it in all of them. We're going to have like some loops here to print them out and make AI create the UI, which is pretty capable at this point. Like it doesn't need our help on these stuff, but it definitely needs our help on like connecting the dots, which is not doing great. Or it's doing great, but it's not doing like autopilot as we want. This is the endpoint we want to call. It's probably gonna fail, maybe not, because this is simple. With the API call or the helper method that we wanted to create, get stories by collection ID or something like that. I don't know why it can't read these OpenAPI spec beautifully. We gave the JSON format programmatical. It literally is more programmatical version of this. Describes like website is a required parameter for this endpoint. And it's like really struggling it. Store top stories. All right, don't guess. We just wanna do step by step. While it writes, I'm creating it here. So let's see like if it's gonna be able to pull top stories. Let's say it read, and then created a new story. It looks somewhat correct, but we'll see. Maybe it did read the API documentation. Collection response is an array of inside data, array of stories. I have a sense that data would contain something like collection metadata and then maybe like a sub item, but we'll see. So this returns the JSON search collections by ID website, collection ID. Wrong. Close, but wrong. So we're going back to our home page. This will call it. Don't delete it. We like its suggestions. So Astro is running in parallel. We go to here. Get top stories is not defined. You are right, my friend. We didn't import. I'm gonna steal how it did So we will go to home page. First we will import get stories by collection ID, libviv API. It's in the same path with navigation, so the relative path is correct. And get top stories, not get top stories, get stories by collection ID is the top story. So all right, I think this will, it already refreshed here. Obviously we didn't print it, but it writes it. So from look of it, let's go up. Obviously there's no limit factor here, so we should be adding some limit. I was wrong. It's returned directly under data in this endpoint, the list of objects. So that's correct. Great. Above the data, there's the collection metadata, which is great. So we could actually pick the description, collection, description, basic. Okay, let's now ask, what do we have? 3. Let's do 2 by 2. It's gonna be too crowded. Let's do like just 3. Okay, there's no title. We'll use this one. It looks a little bit long, but you may completely omit this. I just want some and dynamically pull the description from the collection metadata. Chops it off, gets the section title, prints the section title here, then maps it, which is okay for now. Okay, it killed the trending topics, fine, like we don't need it. So without me even saving this or accepting anything, it did save, and Astro picked up, like, you know, the refreshed, and these are great. Like, it just out of box, its schema definition in here, it actually seems accurate that it pulled the promo item, the URL, and the headlines, the canonical, let's see, canonical URLs. Yes. At the bottom, if you look at the status bar, it shows the article URI, which is year, month, date, and the slug of the article. That's correct. All right, so what do we want to say? Maybe like make thumbnails link as well. Maybe add the author name. So let's say it. Here's what we didn't do yet. We didn't tell Viv API returns ANS schema. At some point, we could, if it struggles with the nodes, we could ask it to, hey, this is the repo, ANS repo, schema repo, go read it and figure it out. I'm going to ask you like open-ended questions. So it added credits, description basic, collection description basic. That's our previous edit. Okay, in homepage. Oh, these are previous edits. We still didn't accept it. So where did it add? It's added here. Did it work? Wow, it did. This is amazing. All right, so far our experiment is going really well. Now let's add the other sections. It did go with the soft suggestion we made, like create a story card, which is probably going to be this like article tag moved into a new component, and then this section to be replaced. So hopefully this repeating code should be much smaller. Okay, so it's importing story card. That's a new component. Nice. It renamed the name of the variable that we pulled before, top stories title. Okay. Section responses. Collections map. Okay, great. Sections, section responses, getting title and stories extracted from it, which is great. This is actually pretty nice. And other sections mapping it. So without even, checking, we're just checking like how it looks like. Seems like there's some duplicate, but it could be it's probably just the collections including same story over and over. So entertainment didn't come. Didn't return anything. Is it because... Wait, we had... Mobile entertainment, right? Here, 25. Okay, seems like stories deleted. So this collection is kind of empty. All right, we can remove our entertainment section for the time being. We'll just comment. And everything else looks great. It did move the type into... Oh no, this is prop types. It's not the object type. Okay, image height, title. It created large versus small. Okay, that works. We accept the changes it made. Okay, so we're all good so far. Our homepage is coming together. Now we want to add a video section. Maybe after the top stories, we will show videos, right? Just to mix things up. It's creating video card as expected. Let's see if it's gonna attempt to define a different type and return that type. Probably. Nice. Base content, story extends base, video extends base. Not sure if this is correct, but we'll see. Maybe it is. Data can be story or video array. Beautiful. And the homepage. Interesting. It merged all of them into one big promise collection to pull all of them at once. Nice. And then it gets the video section and adds that. Wow, did it listen? I didn't say put it below the top stories. It smartly guessed it. Nice. I don't know where that comes from. Did that automatically render a play button? Wow. Okay. That's very smart. I don't know if it works. Of course, not yet. We're going to create the video detail page, but this is so far pretty impressive. It did the videos. Maybe let's ask it to make it like a little bit more different than the card. Okay, so here's the creative front-endy thing that I'm going to ask it to do. We're kind of guiding it stylistically, change and apply. So here's the deal. Let's watch. This is Astro automatically watching the changes. It may fail while this makes edits, but it will, as it continues writing the files, it will just like refresh. Amazing. It did exactly what we asked it to do. Beautiful. All right, I guess we are done with our homepage. There we go. We have a beautiful looking homepage created, I don't know, like an hour and a half from scratch. Let's try to get like article detail page done. So we're gonna ask it very bluntly, like, hey, just create article detail page. These are the URLs look like, dynamically catch it. So it really is important to understand like what is your story URL structure. By default, when we provision an organization, we do have resolvers and composer story URLs that are in the format of year, month, day, and article slug. But this is it's just a convention. A lot of our customers change this convention to their own liking, like having a section front in front of it, or maybe having like a story as a prefix. But in this case, we're probably looking at more complex, hard to catch. It's not predictable, right? Like, /2023 in this screenshot right now could be just a page, 2023, right? So at this point, we're making an assumption that a regular expression pattern, 4 numbers, if it's starting with /4 numbers, /2 numbers, /2 numbers, /something else, that means an article detail page. Let's pretend that I have no idea how this dynamic routing happens in Astro. So we're going to try to write like a long prompt. Let's actually copy the URL for this as an example. We're going to give it. Let's actually help AI to not struggle again by URL, right? Exactly. So we're going to copy this. In the article detail page, use the same website layout. Have a article header area at the top, having title, byline, publish date. What else? What else did we have in our plan? Cover image. Author, publish date. Yep. We'll also have large hero image, the story cover image. Down below, we'll render content elements. Now maybe we should give ANS repo, because that's what it needs to learn. The Vive API returns the article body in a structured format. We need to convert it to HTML. There are different type of blocks. Let's say it like called ANS. Read ANS schema in its repository and figure out common elements of an article body. Okay, so most likely there are like different type of stuff already in these stories, so we're gonna do basically try to cover those stuff. What else? For now, let's do this because this is the primary content, and once this is working, we will move on to like maybe related articles. I don't know, maybe from like same section. We'll figure it out. Worst case, we will do like a basic like most recent articles, that is like get stories by, a search term that we're gonna come up with a new API endpoint call. But for now, let's roll with the primary content. Okay, it added art. So it's gonna probably try to render the author avatar as well. Nice. Way to go beyond what we're asking. It's just like, okay, great. So it start creating a base and extended version of content elements, text, heading, image, list, quote. I guess those are the base stuff that we wanna cover. There may be more, but for now, let's leave it. Search by stories, website, URL, that looks correct. What else? Article content, that's a new file. So it created, nice, it created a dynamic element creation using this helper method it created. It takes ANS content element. We'll see like if each of these element types and their sub-properties are correct or not. But so far this looks good. Oh, this is article content. It's the body. So it's putting the dynamic thing where is it doing? Like it's basically pretty much like any URL. Only try to fetch if we have a slug that matches our pattern. Okay, that sounds good, but how about like other pages like section fronts or video detail pages? Okay, for now at least like this is doing the right behavior. If you do like /foobar that doesn't match with this pattern, it does what it's supposed to do. It shows like, hey, 404, I don't know this page. It feels like it's gonna work. Before we accept it, if we just try this, we get the page. Great. So I'm gonna accept all. Our article detail page is roughly complete, right? I guess that's the caption of the image. We can tweak that, we can delete. But this is roughly speaking, looks really, really good. Let's go to our secondary content. Often our article detail pages, for SEO value or other reasons, we want to cross-link our articles, right? So what we call that, like that type of content pieces that is not tied to the global content in regular page builder word, is we categorize them on secondary content. Let's look at the response. If we were printing it in the command line, we're not. So for that, let's print that right somewhere here. So let's look at, this is content elements, like a circular taxonomy. This is the one we want. Maybe from the same section. Let's look at like article taxonomy, and inside there we have sections which has mobile text. So like for this example, since we saw same article was being used in multiple collections, we may see similar results, very same looking results. But this is one of the paths we can take. The primary section, the first section ID, for this particular request, it doesn't know, right? Like this is just standalone article detail page. It doesn't know that it belongs to primarily circulated under technology section, right? So we can catch that, and we can use other Viv API endpoints to pull more stories. Let's do it by this one, right? We'll describe it here. I'm sure this is it's gonna nail. So let's see if it will. Probably new endpoint by section. Section ID. Section, that looks correct. It's updating our article detail page. Okay, story card, related stories, taxonomy section ID. If there is, great. It's checking, existence. It's getting section response, related stories. Okay, related stories would be empty here. If there is, oh nice, it's actually pulling out itself. Beautiful. Nobody told you that, but thanks for being smart. And section name, it's pulling the section's name. It's probably gonna print that like more stories from like mobile, whatever the name of the section is. Beautiful. If not, it says like related stories, shows the stories, and if there is stories. This looks perfect. And it should be probably already refreshed here. Only 2? I guess go back to collections, mobile, and tech. No, there are 15, 15 booked. Yes, that explains it. So it pulls itself out, but wait, we're looking at wrong place. Why are we seeing only 2 stories? That is also looks... Oh, we're looking at the collection. Okay, so this is the collection content. Obviously, the article detail page is not looking by collection, obviously. It's looking by the section. So even though this is a collection, which we kind of like faked it in our homepage. Does this go to homepage? Yes. Like this section is actually not section. It's a collection output. So to do it smart, this should be actually by section. So we could go back and say, hey, instead of like using collection IDs, let's go to our sections and then pick couple sections and curate our homepage with that. So for now, we're not going to make that change. We prove the point that like AI can curate the curated homepage using WebSocket collections. Alternatively, we could use section fronts to pull these stories from. It nailed the front end, like in my opinion, pretty good. Like obviously we're not getting too tied down to like, stylistic choices here. But this resembles like pretty good like a media news publishing site, other than the fact that like content is a test content. I think we made our main points that like we were able to create a new site with using an AI editor. There was a step to set our API tokens and access, but once that's sorted out, like rest of the stuff was pretty straightforward. And again, like Astro is a good popular framework that you could do pretty much the same thing with asking it or setting it up with other popular front-end frameworks, and wiring the backend is going to be identical. So at the end, we were able to recreate a variation of this. Thanks for watching.